Hello, welcome back for Unit 4 as we continue our way through American History 2 course here at Waldorf University. And this week we're going to be taking a look at the Great Depression so we're going to look at the Hoover administration, we're going to look at the Roosevelt administration, maybe we'll even work in some Coolidge. But as you get through the readings and working through some of the course content, keep in mind what you got to do this week. So over on the discussion board we'll have another video as usual where we'll talk about what was more influential by 1940, the concept of American individual or the concept of the deserving poor. I'll talk about that more in that video. The other thing you got to do this week is your Unit 4 assessment. And a lot of this is matching. Make sure that we're in kind of the content for the week, making sure we're paying attention. So maybe take a look at those before you go through the content so you don't have to backtrack and re-find all those things individually if you could have just been following along while you were reading. But then you do have a question that I want you to have in your mind as you take a look at the content for the week. So we're going to take a look at who had the largest influences kind of on marginalized peoples during this time period we're studying this week. So you could look at Herbert Hoover. One of my favorite presidents because I'm a shameless homer from Iowa, and so was Herbert Hoover. He's our only president. Also kind of interesting that he was the first ever football coach at Stanford University while he was a student there studying mining. And Hoover's kind of interesting because he went and had a very successful career in kind of prospecting, and he helped found some big mines around the world in places like Australia, and eventually ended up in China during the Boxer Rebellion, made himself a whole lot of money, came back to the United States, and then retired. And he had a very Quaker upbringing, so he represents that cultural aspect of America. And Hoover believed that after he made money, he should give back to the community. And so he did that in a variety of ways. He organized relief in World War II for people stuck in Belgium and helped provide food in the European theater during World War II. Or during World War I, was a person that after the great floods in the Mississippi River in the early 1900s, he was charged with helping out those peoples. And then when he became president, he continued this kind of prosperity gospel that had been really important to American culture in the 1920s. And this was a very laissez-faire, hands-off form of government. And as Hoover came in, succeeding Coolidge, he just continued to hopefully let the economy function as usual. It had been climbing significantly for the previous decade. World War I had helped launch the United States into a kind of new era of prosperity. And unfortunately for Hoover, the stock market crashed. And so he had to deal with things like the bonus army and the initial American responses to the onset of the Great Depression. So you could look at him and kind of talk about his legacies. You could talk about Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who is going to take over for Hoover, use a lot of the data that was created by people working for Hoover to then start his iconic 100 days, where he really changed American life as we know it and moved us into a different era in American history. Franklin Delano Roosevelt's going to bring in his New Deal, which includes all sorts of public works programs aimed at doing a lot of different things. I think about here in my own state in Iowa, before the Roosevelt presidency, 90% of the state didn't have electricity. The Rural Electrification Act is going to be a thing that happens during the Roosevelt administration that then powers up the countryside and connects farmers and other people living in rural Iowa to electricity for the first time. Among many, many other things that we're going to see come out of the New Deal. We're going to see lots of Hoover's policies aimed at helping marginalized people. So you could talk about FDR. You could also talk about two more specific things that aren't people, if that would be better. You could talk about the Harlem Renaissance, the explosion of culture in New York City, driven by the Black community during this time period. You could also talk about the legalization of unions and how that uplifted working people throughout the country, but created a series of other problems as well. So think about that as you're going through the content. That's going to be the essay question on your assessment. I think we're doing a good job in the course. Keep working hard here as we approach the midway point. As always, if you got questions or other things, make sure you're reaching out. I'm here to help however I can. I do appreciate the hard work you put in the course so far, and I look forward to the great things you're going to do this week. Good luck.